Hello, welcome to the channel. My name's Joe, where I help you make better coffee and give you honest reviews. Today I have the DeLonghi Magnifica Evo. This machine I've been using for about a week or so, and I'm ready to give it a full review for our Black Friday shopping list uh, kind of review videos. This was the first in our series of this set of super automatic espresso machines, and right now I believe it's on sale for $5.99. So that's a pretty good price considering the standard price is normally $8.99. Anyways, let's go ahead and just kind of go over how I'm going to do this review. I'm going to start with the pros, go to the cons, and then I'll make a couple beverages for you. So first off, the pro of this machine is it's so far been the easiest to set up. You plug it in, you put water in, and it's pretty much ready to go. There's not a lot of crazy, errors that I was getting. A lot of the other machines, you have to really fidget around with the water tanks and everything. This one worked, no problem. So that is definitely a pro in my book. Next thing, I think is the startup speed. Now, all these super automatics start up pretty quick, but this one only takes about 20 or 30 seconds. It's pretty quick. It has to do a little drip cycle here, but it's really not too bad, and it heats up pretty quick. Um, so I will say I do like how quick I can make stuff. Okay, the next thing I like about the machine is the simplicity. I think out of the box, you can pretty much just look at what your options are up on the top of the buttons here. Click one, and you're going to have a reasonably good beverage. Um, Now, obviously, there's dialing in and things like that, but in terms of just starting it up and running it, you're going to get a pretty good shot. Now, I will say you do have to run 2 or 3 shots before the grinder is kind of like worked in a little bit. It does have to like get enough coffee in there to work correctly. But after you do that initial startup, making a couple of shots, it's pretty much ready to go. Um, Other thing I really like about this is the way some of these shots work. So the espresso works fine, no issues there, and you can edit them by just holding the button down. So I do like that. You just hold the button down, wait for a couple of clicks, and then or a couple of beeps, and then you can customize how much you want to flow out. So I like that you don't have to, go through some weird settings or anything like that. Um, and then in terms of how it makes some of these drinks is like the Americano, for example, when you hit the Americano button, it'll pull the shot and it'll actually pour water out of the same spout. So you don't have to worry about kind of over extracting. And that's one thing I'll say about the coffee button is I probably wouldn't use that because basically it's just going to keep pushing water outside of the same puck at high pressure. So that's one thing that I would say avoid using. It's not, if you prefer that kind of drink, um, that's fine, but generally I would avoid it. If you want to make a coffee, I actually think I think it's supposed to be long black is what that's going for. That actually is pretty good because what it does is it pushes a little bit of liquid out at a time, so it's not like over extracting it too much in terms of high pressure. It's almost sort of like a drip coffee. So that one, I would say, if you want more of a coffee style, do that and edit it to your preference. Other thing I like is, again, some of the interface buttons here. Like, I like being able just to hit the amount of coffee that you want on there. Super easy. And then you can clearly see an overdose button, or a side dose button there. So if you want to do that, you just click that and then go to one of the drinks. So that's super simple. Um, and then there's even a 2x button. Again, all these things are very intuitive, pretty easy to do. Um, with a couple of caveats, but we'll talk about that later. In terms of the grinder, this is my favorite grinder out of the super automatics I've actually ever reviewed, mostly because it lets you change the settings up at the top to go as fine as you want. So you can actually kind of, I'll say, like, seize the machine sort of. If you go all the way, you crank it, you could actually, make it so that it won't pull espresso out. Some people might see that as a bad thing, but I like to have as much control over my coffee as possible. And with a super automatic, it's nice to be able to go pretty fine to get a like a pretty true dialed-in shot of espresso. Compared to a lot of other machines, some machines don't even give you the option to change the grind setting. I think that is very short-sighted. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to be able to change it at least a little bit. So I do like the true versatility and overall control you get with doing something like that, letting you have full control over the grinder. Big bonus points in my category. Um, Other thing, this does have an option. There is an automatic frother. I didn't get it, but I generally don't like those because the steam normally doesn't come out super hot or anything like that. So I do like the Panarellos on here. This one's, pretty good. I will say the downside with this is it doesn't have any adjustments, but in terms of being able to like just use it and pop in milk and everything, it's pretty good. All right, so the steam one's pretty good. It's not the fastest in the world, but it takes about, I don't know, about 5 seconds when you hit the steam button to start pumping, and then you'll turn this knob. And once you turn that knob, a lot of times if you haven't used it in a little bit, there's going to be water that comes out. Once you put the steam in there and it's actually steaming, it takes about 50 seconds to get cold milk to about 130 degrees. We started out with a temperature of around 48 degrees, 45 degrees on the milk, and it took, like I said, about 50 seconds to get it heated up to 130, which is around where you'd want milk steam to, somewhere between 130 and 140. So that's the steam one. I think it's pretty good. So the espresso is pretty good. I will just mention one thing. I really like the way the espresso comes out, but there is a weird thing where it grinds and then it tamps and it just kind of sits there for a while. It takes about 12 seconds for it to start actually brewing. I'm not sure why it does that. If anybody knows, put it in the comment below. I'd like to know the reason why it just sits tamped for a while. But other than that, I think the espresso on this is probably one of the best. Another thing, though, let's talk about some other nice little features here. I do like the indicator. It's pretty simple. Most espresso machines now have this. There's a little red indicator pops up when you need to pull this out and clean it. Another big bonus on this machine, some machines don't have this, but this machine does. You can access the brew unit by popping out the water, and then you can access the brew unit from there. You can clean it pretty easily. The other thing I do like that the water on this on the side is clear. You can see when it's low. Some people, if they had put it in the right corner of their house, they can kind of see that, and then they can do it before the machine tells you that it is ready to go. And I think that is about everything for the pros. Overall, this is really nice. I do like, last kind of like mini thing here, I do like that you can, move this up and down. Some machines don't give you that. It goes a pretty good distance. But other than that, I think that does it for all the pros. I'm going to move into the cons. Coming at you, just letting you know, don't forget to comment if you have any questions, subscribe to the channel, and like the video. It helps me out a ton. Thanks. Okay, so first con, I think, is the settings cog on here. If you click on it, you don't really know what it's doing. You really have to read the instructions to know what you're changing at, like, pretty much on everything. And one thing I'll say that you probably want to do right out of the box is this machine turns itself off pretty quick, which is fine. But because it runs a drip cycle every time, it gets kind of annoying if you're pulling a few shots throughout the day, that you have to wait for the drip, and you're going to fill this drip tray up pretty quick. So my recommendation is right away, do that settings cogwheel, turn off the eco mode, and also turn up the time it'll stay on for, because by default it only stay on for 30 minutes. So go ahead and change that, and you have to read the instructions. Basically, you hit the settings button, and you have to click on a couple of these buttons up here. Not a huge deal, but it's definitely not intuitive because changing some of the settings, you're hitting the copy buttons to change the length of time it stays on, so it's a little weird there. But other than that, it's not too terrible, but you definitely need to read the instructions. Um, Another thing I'd say on this, and this goes for a lot of super automatic machines, and this is, no different. Everything's pretty plasticky on this. The sides are plastic. Everything is plastic, except for the drip tray piece here, the inner piece of the drip tray. So, it looks pretty good. It's a handsome looking machine, but it's not exactly. It could be a lot nicer if it had some metal on the front, especially. Um, but it's not the end of the world. Another downside, this heat tray up here doesn't get very hot. It's plastic. It doesn't transfer heat very well. So you could put some cups up here. I would say it's another piece of this plastic that kind of makes me nervous is that this top tray is actually kind of slippery plastic, and there's no like rubber on here. So if you have some cups on here, they can slide around a little bit, especially if you have a bunch up here. They can easily kind of knock into each other. So be careful of that and realize that this is probably not going to heat your cup up all that much, especially if you leave the default settings on where it's only on for 30 minutes at a time. It's definitely not going to heat your cups up. One more thing too, it's maybe a touch big. It's not insanely big for a super automatic, but it is 9 by 16 and a half by 14. So not super tall, but it's definitely a little long and slightly wide. Um, so it'll definitely fit underneath cabinets, but if you're trying to fill coffee back here, it can get a little touch and go at times. Yeah, so that's about it on the cons. I think this machine could maybe have benefited from a screen just to make some of the interface things a little bit nicer. But again, I think overall this is a really nice machine. So let me go ahead and make one more drink. You can see the workflow of a latte and then go from there. All right, we got our first shot of espresso here to give it a taste. It's pretty good. Decent amount of crema. the I would say that this in so far has ranked as my best super automatic shot of espresso. I don't think that anybody compares to DeLonghi in this category, mostly just because it gives you so much control over the grinder. Pretty good body. With any super automatic, it's not going to be quite as luscious and syrupy as a traditional espresso machine just because of how it works. It uses a double-walled espresso basket instead of a single-walled. And if you want to see a video about that, I'll link it up there. You can click on it and see what the differences are. But overall, this is actually a pretty dang good shot of espresso for a super automatic. All right, so I'm going to make a latte. Already made an espresso, did a taste test, so let's do a quick latte. Hit the espresso button. All right. Hey, you can still make latte art with it. Look at that. Not too bad. Give it a quick test. Not bad. It's pretty good. All right, so I guess it's time for a final score. I'm going to go ahead and give the DeLonghi Magnifica Evo an 8.7. I think for the price, it kind of hits a lot of nice little pinpoints there. And if you can take the time to dial in your coffee nicely with the grind adjuster, you can get really, really good shots of espresso for a super automatic. So I would say this is probably best in class in terms of that. Obviously, I'd give it a much higher score if it had a screen and maybe some more functionality via an app or something like that, just to make it a little bit easier to run cleaning cycles and things like that, or change settings. But overall, I'd say the DeLonghi Magnifica Evo 8.7, great machine. Catch you in the next video. Thanks again.